Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. Glad to have you here. If you're here watching on YouTube, there's a link down below that you can actually click and join the Zoom in a future day if you like. So definitely check that out. If you're here and you're new and you're in the participants area or in the participants area in the attendee area, you're probably wondering how all these folks ended up as panelists. Well, they got here early. We open actually at 6. So while we promote 7 o'clock, we open at 6 and we start chatting. It eventually becomes a more technical chat, but oftentimes first thing in the morning, I can't promise anything. We're all just having tea and coffee and just kind of discussing stuff and warming up to the day. At 6:30, between 6:30 and 6:40, we post a Discord link. Discord is where almost 600 of us are also continuing to have this conversation every day. And so you can join the Discord by being here between 6:30 and 6:40 to get that link. By the time I do this announcement, it's expired. You'll have to come another day. So take that into account and come early, and you can join Discord. At about 6:40, between 6:40 and 6:45, we open up mic checks. So if you're here before 6:40 or 6:45 and you raise your Zoom hand, you'll be able to join the panel and be part of the conversation, the video conversation. You're part of the conversation the whole time. Once we start the mic checks, you don't need to raise your hand. We're not going to bring you in. So you need to be here early to be part of the panel. So definitely take that into account. If you're as an attendee, the good news is you can ask questions. We can't ask questions. Once we're in the panel, you can't ask any questions. You have a Q&A down below, and that Q&A will let you ask questions. Our request is that you keep them at 5 lines or less. And also 5 lines or less, not really long ones. Keep 1 question per post, and also try not to put comments in there. We're not going to deal with comments. We'll just dismiss them. If you're a panelist, and really if you're an attendee as well, try not to answer any of the questions. Don't interact with the questions. I know that some folks are new and so they don't know that yet, but we don't want you to do that. It makes it hard for us to sort. The only way that you want to interact with those questions is to vote on them. There's 200 plus people here. There's a handful of questions. You're driving this conversation. So for the first hour, for 7 to 8 o'clock, you're driving it by what you ask. And our suggestion is to ask early. And then also what you vote on. So if you vote questions up, we're going to be more likely to take those from the top. And so as we try to answer almost every question that's asked, what happens is we start speeding up as we run out of time. So the first questions might get a little more time. The questions at the end of the hour get a lot less time. In the second hour, 8 to 9 o'clock, we almost always have a second hour where we take one subject that we're going to talk about for a little while, rather than have it be this kind of just jumping from subject to subject that we have in the first hour. Today, we're going to talk about education. This is a general Q&A around education. So it's just for us to have a place where we can just have questions and discussion around remote education, media and education, the education process. A lot of us are in that field or paying a lot of attention to it. And it's probably going to become very, very important, or it is very important now, especially with situations. So we're going to have that every Monday. And right now we don't have specific speakers as much as we have a general discussion about it. We're going to experiment with the same thing tomorrow. So Tuesday, the second hour, will be a general discussion about audio. So rather than having a specific subject about audio, we're going to experiment with the idea of just having all the question and answer be very focused on audio. And we're going to do that occasionally with different pieces where we kind of take a breath and kind of fill things in, where we can just ask a lot of questions. And that when you come, that's what we're going to be talking about. On Wednesday, the second hour, we're going to have Chris Summers, and he's going to talk. We said this last week, but I hadn't realized we hadn't finished the lens conversation. So this week, Chris is going to be talking about camera support and safety, remote heads, camera rigging, tricky rigs, vehicles, and safety at work. So that's going to be on Wednesday. On Thursday, Phil Hodgetts he's the founder of Lumberjack Systems, along with Intelligent Assistance, is going to join us, and he's going to talk about logging field data to streamline your post-production process, which a lot of us have been talking about how important that is. Phil's going to come on and talk more about how important that is. So we'll be here on Thursday. Also from 9 to 10, that we have a third hour on Thursdays where Oliver Breidenbach will be talking about Memo Live. And so if you have questions about that, all of us can get Memo Live for free if you run the request with Oliver. It'll last through the end of July. So anyway, you can download it in the email that we send out today. You'll be able to get that that link, and then you can follow along. On Friday, we have Steve Wright. He is the author of The Digital Compositing for Film and Video, otherwise for many of us known as the Good Book of Wright. And he basically taught me a lot of what I know about green screen. Actually, plugins like DVMat were based on thoughts in his book. So Steve is the grandmaster of green screen, and he is going to be here talking about green screen. So we'll be answering your questions on Friday, and it's going to be a pleasure to have him here on Friday for the second hour. Saturday is going to is usually the long day. It's not going to be a long day. As I was working on the schedule, I realized that Saturday was July 4th. Now, for those of you outside of the country, that doesn't mean anything. But for those inside the country, inside the United States, that's probably a distraction. We will still do question and answer. So I will still be here for question and answer because you're not allowed to do fireworks in Marin County. So I will still be here for the Q&A for the 10 people that want to come and chat, or all the internet. This will be a highly international Saturday morning, but normally we go for a long period of time. We're not going to go do that this time. And then Sunday it will still be the regularly scheduled 2 hours of question and answer. If you are interested, I know that sometimes people are asking, how do I invite people to join office hours? If you think it's useful and you want to have your friends know about it, you can use the link that I just posted in the chat. So I think that we have a couple links floating around. This is the most accurate link, and that's the one that I would use for that. So as we get bigger, it's easier for us to bring more cool people to come speak with us and get all kinds of other things that we're working on. So but we're not looking for growing fast, just growing well, which we've done pretty well so far. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to throw it off to Chris. Chris, what do we got?
Good morning, Alex. For the record, we have 13 questions so far. Pace yourself. Jeffrey Reyes says, you always prefer Ethernet versus Wi-Fi, but does having really good Wi-Fi, like 1 gigabit FIOS connection, eliminate most of those issues?
It's a good question, and the answer is no. So it doesn't, the function of your Wi-Fi isn't, the function of the quality of your Wi-Fi is not connected to the speed of your internet. It's connected to the number of devices that are roaming around your access point. So if you have a lot of devices that are all talking and they're coming up and online, this can literally be people walking around your house with phones. The phone comes into the AP or access point, and the access point is very chatty. It's like, hey, how's it going? What do you need? What do you need? Oh, I'd like to have a little bit of bandwidth, and so they're all talking. And while it's doing that, it drops bits. Like it's very absent-minded. Just think of your access point it's got all these people talking to it all at the same time, and it's going, okay, I'll give you what you need, and I'll give you what you need. It's great for general, easy. I can walk around, I can surf the web, and when you watch videos like YouTube, those are cached. So what happens is they're buffered. So you only need to get a spurt of bandwidth every 10 seconds or 5 seconds or 20 seconds, because they give you all of it at one time, and then they don't need anything anymore. And so the thing is that all of that works really well. But when you get into a low latency situation with our video, where you have to get every bit and you have to get it in real time, Wi-Fi is horrible. And it will work if you have almost no devices or zero devices, and you live in the middle of the country where there's nobody around your house. Wi-Fi will work as well as wired, like it really will. But how many of us have that? Not many. Yeah, well, Colin has that. So anyway, so you want to make sure that. So anyway, the timing of your hand was perfect, Colin. So anyway, it is really important to understand that your speed of your internet to your house is not going to affect the quality. It will affect it a little bit. When it's really low, it'll be way worse. Like the Wi-Fi will be a disaster, but you will still see microphasing. We see it at companies that have 10 gigs coming into their building, and if you test it at the location, it's 100 megs up and down, and we still see Wi-Fi phasing because they have a whole bunch of people in the office. Jason, then Phil, then Chris, then Colin, and then we're going to move on. Yep.
There we go. The protocol for Wi-Fi is the problem here. It is actually called, like the technical name is a nice protocol, which means it talks and allows other things to interrupt it, which is how the Wi-Fi bandwidth gets subdivided and split. So at the end of the day, if you're asking that question, there is no such thing as Wi-Fi that's good enough.
Phil?
Are you 100% sure you're not on Wi-Fi right now? Because I heard your voice break out while you were explaining.
It was
While I was
completely
talking?
ironic as you said it.
You couldn't have timed it
Old
better.
Robert-
Wait, me or Alex?
No, Alex.
Alex.
It could be. It could be. I was over the weekend. I was doing a bunch of stuff with my thing, and I'm just looking right now at my.
It sounded very Wi-Fi-ish.
It was.
Yep.
I think a
great
bird
web
just
irony.
flew between your dish.
Oh, you know what? So what you saw, that little breakup that you saw, I was changing a bunch of stuff, and it was perfect to answer this question on Wi-Fi, so that you could hear. I didn't do it on purpose. I wish I should have said I did it on purpose. What happened was that I changed my the order of network on my computer because I was downloading something. So I have 50/50 that's on a microwave, which won't have that problem, or it's a duplex connection, which I don't have that problem with. But when I want to download something big, I go back to my Comcast, which is 300 down, and I did that over the weekend, and now I'm still on Wi-Fi. So that little breakup that you saw, that's what you get with Wi-Fi. And I will not switch it. So you might see it more often while I talk today, because I will not change it in the middle of the show. So the knife is there, and the question is, do you pull the knife out of the body or do you leave it in? I think we're going to leave it in. So like it's bleeding a little bit. It could bleed a lot if I pull it out.
Fine.
So we're gonna leave it there. But that little phasing that you saw while I was talking, which I don't see, is what happens with Wi-Fi in your show. Chris, did you want to add anything to that?
I think one, you should pull the knife because Mickey's host. You'll be okay.
We'll give it a shot. Let's
try it.
Let's pull it.
All I was going to do is say what Phil said, that it was completely ironic. Also, Colin had raised his hand in there too.
Yep, we're going Colin next.
Okay.
Go ahead, Colin.
Okay, so everything that is said is absolutely correct. There are a couple of things you can do to mitigate these problems. Modern Wi-Fi access points have multiple antennas. When you multiply the number of antennas, you multiply the number of available devices and reduce the chatter per antenna, and so you reduce the problems that you encounter. The other thing to consider when you say that you have a particular broadband provider and it has good Wi-Fi, that tells me that you're using the Wi-Fi hardware that your broadband provider offered you. Don't do that. You want much more control over your network than that offers you. So get the modem that your broadband provider gives you, get your own router, and then get your own separate Wi-Fi access point. You'll be much happier. And if you have to use Wi-Fi in these circumstances, you'll get much better results that way.
Okay.
The one brand that comes to mind when we talk about multiple antennas at a consumer level would be the Nighthawk range from Netgear. There you go.
We're gonna move on. Go ahead. Next question.
David McDonald says, how do I know if my video is good enough to join?
Well, I think the easiest thing to do is look at all the videos here and look at the range and make a decision about whether you think you'll fit in. The video is in general, we're trying to improve the video quality. The reason that we do mic checks every day is because the audio quality is the most important part of these conversations. And so we're more concerned about your audio quality than your video quality. We do want people, if people feel like they have something to add to that, jump on. And the easiest thing to do is get here early, jump on early in the morning and come on and say, how do I look? How do I sound? And just ask us, and we'll give you some feedback on it, and then you can decide. We're okay with folks jumping on, and even if your audio isn't perfect, if you want to jump on and just have the experience of being in the panel to kind of see what that looks like, and at some point we may close that up a little bit, but right now it's pretty open. So you do have to have your camera on, and you do have to go through the mic check, and that's partially a quality thing and partially a security thing. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, and if early is a problem, Sunday afternoons are usually a little more casual, so just jump on there and we'll talk.
Absolutely. Weekends are the best time to come on and just check if you want us to spend more time with you and figure stuff out. Weekends are a good time. And you can also, if you're in Discord, ask people, hey, can someone jump on and chat with me? And there's a lot of folks that will on a meeting, so you don't have to necessarily do it in front of everybody. Next question.
Brian, I think I know what your question's about. Brian Maddox says, what are the panel's recommendations for bonded cellular service specifically for data use, not for video, especially if low latency and jitter are priorities? What kind of data, Brian?
I think somehow.
I think it's going to be a Unity question.
I don't know, maybe. Might have something to do with that.
Maybe some audio. Maybe some audio.
Maybe something to do with those two boards behind him.
Yeah.
Look
what
at
do you
the
got over-
boards.
what do you got over
Brian,
your
what
shoulder
do you
there?
have back there, Brian?
Oh, I have a CL5. I also have a CL5. So I have
Amazing.
two CL5s.
Beautiful.
Stereo.
Not that we're all jealous. So
Yeah. So there you have it. And yeah, so the question might possibly be related to those. It's possible, yes.
So I think that the ones that we've used, as you know, the most are PEP waves, as far as building that backbone. So we have a server, you have to have a server unit that is getting the actual bandwidth. It's providing that bandwidth out. So it's not like you're using a service to do that necessarily. You're using a PEP wave that is, you have a 1U that's sitting in somewhere that has all that internet, 100 megs or a gig or whatever that is. And then the other, basically it's being bonded and coming back to that. And that's what we've used the most. You're still going to end up with jitter. There's a multiplier that happens as you start to add all that bonding. So every time you add a modem, you're going to have more jitter that's going to be added to the system. So you also have to decide with audio, how much bandwidth do you need? And can you get away? But it's literally every modem that you're adding is going to add some of that to it as it's constantly trying to resync all the data that's coming back from those modems. Go ahead, Leland.
My question to Brian is, what's the difference? If you're streaming with something like HyperDeck, which primarily focuses on live video using bonded cellular, what is the difference between the data/video difference that you're concerned with?
Well, it's just that it's not trying to backhaul. I'm maybe speaking for Brian, but he's not trying to backhaul video. He's just trying to get a data connection. And that's a different, the HyperDeck, is doing that video connect, but you want to do all kinds of things, right, Brian, with that data?
Exactly. I want an internet connection. I just want a bonded cellular internet connection. And so many of the bonded cellular solutions are video based, and that's not what I'm looking to do.
Yep. I think that, unless someone else has another suggestion, I think the PEP wave is still the one that I've used the most. I'm sure there's other ones out there. It's just the one that I know. Go ahead, Beju.
One thing that PepWave has added the option now that you can run the other end on a virtual appliance in AWS. So you don't need to have a physical location for that. And I think Mushroom Networks has some good routers as well, which do decent bonding.
Yeah, we tried Mushroom a long time ago, and it was not a great experience for us. But I think that they were just getting started. That's the hard part, and that's always the danger of releasing a product early, is that people make a decision. Like, I just look at Mushroom Networks and I think of a week of hell that I went through thinking, of trying to run an event on Mushroom Networks, and the scar is so deep that I just kind of just chitter a little bit and decide I don't want to touch it anymore. And I have the same, reaction to some switching systems. So anyways, but it's based on stuff that hasn't happened for a long time. But the thing to be careful of if you're going to start using the connection in the cloud is what the costs of using it in the cloud will be. If you have a fixed cost, if you're going to a server that you do have to pay for it, but you have fixed cost there. Whereas if you're doing it in the cloud, you'll have a variable cost depending on how much data you're pushing through it. That could impact you. Next question.
Michael Ball wants to know, what are the panelists' favorite desktop mute switches? I have a Rolls MS-111, and it has a slight hum when it's muted, and I'm considering replacing it. So, Michael, I think you're talking about a physical, almost like a cough switch.
Are you there? Are you there, Michael? Oh, you're here in our little group. Aren't you?
He's here.
Yep, Zoom was muted. Yeah, just a physical latching mute switch that I use. And less than an Alex, please.
Yeah. There's some good. There's good foot switches as well, and then there's mute switches. You go ahead, Bill.
So hums are often ground problems. That's the typical reason you'd get a hum in your system. So anything that's a little portable gizmo like this, and as a matter of fact, I have one on the other system in there. they tend to fall off desks and stuff like that, and the ground trace can break or something like that. I do know that Rolls, which also makes the phantom power supply that I have here, they're a small company. They're in either, I think, Utah or Colorado. They've been fabulous with service. So if you've got anything that's not right, consider just giving them a call, see if you can send it in. They'll go through the whole thing and send it back in a couple of days, and it's like $20 the last time I got something done from them. So I love the small business aspect of it. But generally, I think hums are ground related usually. So you might have RF, and it might be just a shielding thing.
And I will give you the Alex version of it. The Alex, the one for an Alex is Studio Technologies. That's what we use on like Studio Technologies is the heavy-handed. I can have a whole bunch of different controls, and I can route it differently with dip switches, and the quality is going to be really high. That's the reason I was kind of at loss is that those are the only ones I've used in the last decade. Are just those their equipment, mostly because it's highly configurable and it sounds good. I've moved most of the stuff we've done in the last 3 or 4 years has been Dante based. So you have your mic going into it, and then it's immediately converted to Dante. And then you eliminate a lot of other noise issues. Next question.
Okay, Husmuk says, hi, setup now. His setup now is the ATEM into the MacBook Pro, iPhone 11 with HDMI dongle into the ATEM, DPA with XLR into Scarlett Solo, Scarlett Solo USB into MacBook Pro, Sidekick jack into audio out in MacBook Pro, now with MixPre 6.2. What is the setup?
Well, what I would do is I believe the MixPre 6 has two of the TA3s on it. Does it? I believe. Oh, it doesn't. That's only the 10. So then you would, with the MixPre 6, I believe you have a headphone jack that goes out, or a TRS jack. Go ahead, Mickey. You want to jump on that?
Yeah. I actually jumped on a Zoom call with Hasmuk, I think a week or two ago.
Right.
He has the DPA going into his Scarlett via XLR. And yeah, essentially you just put your mic straight into the MixPre, grab the headphone out. That's where you plug in your Sidekick earpiece. And on your headphone preset on the MixPre, set it to monitor the USB inputs.
And then you're going to use the MixPre as your interface into the computer?
Yeah, in and out.
Yeah. So you don't need the Scarlett at all at that point. And I run mine a little differently because I have a different system, but I run it into the camera and then out. But without the TA3s, you won't want to try it. What camera is being used here?
That I'm not sure of.
It says okay. iPhone 11. It's just using
iPhone 11. Yeah. So then you'd absolutely, if you're doing iPhone 11, run MixPre separately into it. And then what you'll have to do is look at delay, which the MixPre can do.
With the latest update to the MixPre, you can add the delay to the USB output now, not just the physical outputs.
Yeah, Chris Fenwick.
It seems to me I saw somewhere that all 6 channels of a MixPre 6 can show up in the software of your Mac.
Yes.
I only see 2 channels. What am I missing?
Go ahead, Mickey.
Add an aggregate. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go to, if you're on a Mac audio MIDI setup, and you can go into the inputs pane, and you can select how many channels go in.
Sounds like default, I shouldn't do that during the show.
No, don't do that during the show. No, that's an off show kind of thing there.
It's a day
you're shy, and then we're gonna move on. Quickly.
Mickey, one more thing I want to add. You can actually go to the MixPre and tell which USB channel to route. You can route all the USB. You don't need to go to the MIDI. You can tell in the MixPre to route all the 6 channel there, and then it shows up like in Pro Tools. I can see all of them.
I believe is that in the advanced settings in the MixPre?
Yes. Yeah, you have to change.
So you may be in basic mode. You may need to switch from basic mode in the MixPre to advanced mode in the MixPre, and then
you can see all your USB, and you can route them all the channels separately.
Yep.
As ISO.
All right, next question.
Okay, Victor says, what are some suggestions for a back-colored lighting on backgrounds?
So I'm assuming some uplights or some lights in the background. Go ahead, Roscoe.
I mean, something that's really nice you can do with LEDs now is get some gel and put them right next to the LEDs. They're not going to melt or anything like that. So, I mean, if you just want something that's nice and stable, just pick some nice Roscoe colors and put some LEDs, nice LEDs behind them, and go for it because you can. But I understand if you want a hue or something that's adjustable, that's different.
Fenwick?
I was going to say, and I'm realizing for some reason I picked this orange color today. One thing to think about is, we talk about contrast of brightness, but color contrast is important too. So I'm going to change mine to blue because my little pink face stands off. It's opposite on the vector.
Yeah, no,
I think you
absolutely.
could use a slight blue hint.
I know.
On your background.
This one I'm so busy right now. I haven't decided to redo it, but I do think that I would rather this be a cooler color behind me than what it is right now. It's just what it was when I shot it. But when I do it again,
switcher in front of you, you could dissolve to a color background or just a touch of. You don't even have to open up Photoshop to solve that, Alex.
Go ahead, George.
So I've been fighting with this for weeks now. I mean, I would love to have green screen, but my space is just too small. But I'm pretty much using hue lighting to light my background. And I pretty much could change those colors as you can see right there. So I just want to keep things sterile.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Next question.
The next question is also Victor. What is the hierarchy in the production world? I don't know what that
Hierarchy.
means.
I think it's hierarchy. It's asking about the hierarchy.
It's one word. What is the okay? So before the show, we were talking about certain people you just should never talk to the talent. I think that's what he's referring to.
I think that it's not a specific thing. It's something that you kind of have to feel through the process. But we'll just kind of put it in a generalized. And someone else can correct me if you think that I'm wrong. But generally, there's talent, and then there's the client, and then there's the producer level on your side and their side that are going back and forth. And then there is generally your senior below the line staff. Below the line staff are the people who are not in front of the camera and not designing the show. And they're the people who are running gear. And then you have the juniors, and then you have the PAs. Like that's kind of the thing. And when the PA especially starts talking to the talent, they've jumped like 6 levels up, unless they were asked to go do that and put a mic on them or something like that. And that's when you fire them. So that like on set, you just let them go. You have to go. We'll find somebody else. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, on bigger sets, particularly union sets, there is a defined hierarchy, and you'll hear A1, A2. Those are specific levels of seniority, and it's very rigid, and it's never broken.
Yep. Roscoe?
Yeah, and the other thing is go find some old Hollywood accounting software, and it'll exactly what people are getting paid, and you'll figure out exactly where everyone fits in the chain just by looking at the old breakdown sheets.
Go ahead, Paul.
At Fast and Furious 6, Michelle Rodriguez spoke to me. I'm so sorry.
Here's the thing is, if they speak to you, it's totally fine. It's if you come up to them, and especially if you come up to them and make a request, that's the part where you get into and again, it is when you're getting started and you don't know what that food chain is, it's just be careful. Like be careful. Talk to the person that you're working for. Be careful of getting out. And a lot of it is just trying to be somewhat invisible, and doing your thing rather than getting in the middle of this thing. It's such a dangerous place for you to go. Is to start talking to everyone, and because it'll also, if you just talk to the client, it's going to make your producer super uncomfortable because you will promise things to the client that the producer doesn't know. The client will come up and ask you something. You'll say yes. The producer might have had some other plan for you, or there's some reason they weren't offering that. And you're now sidestepping that. And it might be a perfectly good request and a perfectly good reason to do it, but you've now short-circuited the system, and something else fails because you did that. And that's the thing that drives people crazy. Chris, and then Carl.
A slight side note to this is be careful, because we were talking about selfies earlier. Be careful about that camera you have in your pocket. It can get you in an immense amount of trouble. A very good friend of mine, Brian has met him now, Fred, was on an Apple shoot. He took a picture of his patch bay in the truck because he needed to reference something. There was a no camera policy. He's never worked for Apple again. In the truck of his patch bay. Just you have to be careful.
Well, and a lot of events I work on, we actually get stickers that you put on your phone. Like you have to put them over top of you can't pull your phone out without, they give you stickers, and we have to put the stickers on. Some of them are stickier stickers than others, but you have to put them over your phone while you're in there. And if you pull your phone out without that sticker, even if you're talking on it, people will be upset. And so definitely, yeah, taking pictures I pretty much when I'm on somebody else's location, I won't take a picture unless I ask. Like, can I take a picture here? Is it okay for me to do that? Even if it's just reference, I won't do that. Go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, on the other side of it, having a good floor manager or having a show manager is the person that I want to work with, and they always come to me. And if you're on the tech side, that person will save you a whole lot of grief because there are a lot of competing interests on a show and a lot of things that need to be managed. Let that show manager run interference for you, because I work with the talent, and sometimes there are things that you just need to be managed against things. So let that person run interference for you.
Right. Because a lot of times people are going to make requests that sound reasonable on their face, but they're not reasonable in the entire thing. And again, it can really sidetrack an entire event to start accepting those requests or even having those conversations ex parte. Bill?
Well, I was really quickly, my wife used to be an editor in a newspaper, and the very first day she worked, she made the mistake of taking the scissors that were hanging on a chain above the wire machine and cutting off copy. And there was an hour-and-a-half lecture after that about that's not in your job description. Do not do that. That's union. Stay away from it.
And there's a whole nother conversation we can have about working with the union if you're non-union, because there is definitely some very defined pathways that you need to kind of follow in that. And it doesn't mean that you want to get into a whole this isn't in my job description mode, because that's a good way to not get called again, is to be constantly telling people that that's not my job. Is a great way to it's not so much you'll get let go, you'll just not get called again. Because the thing about production is that it's a fluid state. They get to rebuild the team every show. And so, how you present yourself at every moment is pushing whether you're going to get called again, and so that's the thing you have to kind of, keep in your head as you work through those things. All right, next question.
Christian Oliver says, in one of the past streams, Alex mentioned that YouTube and Twitch were not ideal for audience engagement. Is there any platform which he would qualify as good? If not, which one would be best? Thanks.
I think that I think this is actually a pretty good job. This is a pretty good. The reason we use this platform is it's pretty good at audience engagement with chat and questions. And I think that you have to have the table stakes for good audience interaction is a separate Q&A with a separate chat. You cannot have a conversation without those two pieces. So one of the reasons that we chose Zoom was specifically because it has those two things. And it's something that I've been building Q&A systems for over a decade, and you guys will all get to see one soon that I'm working on. But the issue is that you have to have a chat where people can have conversation, they can figure things out, they can work through it, and then be able to separate the Q&A out of that. And the problem is anything that has a unified comment system, so like Facebook and Twitch and YouTube, are a disaster. It's a huge mess to actually moderate at any scale. Once you get over a couple hundred people, it just completely comes apart. In addition to that, you have to, by doing these over and over again, you're training your audience on how to interact with you, and so having ongoing interactions, has the audience get better at it, which means that you have a better conversation, which is one of the reasons we do this every day is that everyone's getting better at that process. All of us are learning. I'm learning, and everyone in the panel's learning. All the attendees are learning. There's a culture. It's a cultured community. And then Facebook's a little bit better at interaction because of real names. So Twitch and YouTube don't use real names. You'll never build a community without real names. I know that some people have privacy issues and everything else. Not possible. like after 20 years of doing this, not possible. And so if you want to have a good community, if you want it to work, that's why we drive people to use their real names in Discord. That's why we drive towards pictures, is because it immediately stabilizes the system. And I've done it all different ways over the last 30 years, and that's the only one that works. Chris?
One of the things, and I'm just echoing what you've said, Alex, but one of the amazing things, and you remind us about this every once in a while, about using your real name is there's 251 people right now from all walks of the industry interacting with us. And so the real name is a nice thing. I mean, people know who I am.
Yep. And people can make up their names if they want to, but eventually
whether they like that or not.
Well, the thing is that it's just you can make up your name, and I'm not like I'm allowing to, but boy, if you spend a lot of time and build yourself up in a community, and people find out that you made up your name, you're gonna look stupid. Like that's all. And I'll be the first one to make fun of you for it. So anyway, just because I use my real name everywhere. So if I sign up for a service, I just use my real name because I don't interact in the internet in any way that I don't want. It keeps me in check. Is that I don't say anything on the internet that I'm not, and I don't do private postings. I don't do I do public postings. I've just learned it's safer for me to not ever assume that I have a private, situation. I think about everything I put up there as to whether I want that to reflect on me, and I think that when you start hiding behind that, you're building up something that could come back and bite you. Anyway, next question.
Tina Cipolla says, I create training materials and video and audio is not my specialty. My voiceover talent, other employees use an application called Voice Record Pro on their phones, and I edit the video and audio in Camtasia. I use Articulate to build courses. If I wanted to upgrade one thing on a budget, what should it be?
Get a better mic for the iPhone.
I was going to say
yes,
acoustic treatment in the room they record on.
Yeah, acoustic treatment, or get a specialized mic for the iPhone that you're going to get high quality audio. I mean, the audio is everything, So if you're hearing echo or you're hearing anything else, now I haven't heard your audio. Maybe your audio is great. If they've got a really anyway, so that's that would be my recommendation. Sky,
and recommendations for a higher quality microphone, please.
I'll let other people recommend that. I use the ones that I've used are either, I've used interfaces like Ceramonics, for that type of thing. I've also used the Rode, some of the Rode mics that go in that have been relatively successful. Jesse, then Roscoe, and then Bill. Keep it quick, and we're going to move on to the next one.
Apogee Hype mic is a great one. It's about $350 though, so it's a little higher end, but it'll plug into Lightning and USB. Comes with all the cables too.
That's great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, go find your walk-in closet and do all your recording in there. It's just get a lot of material.
Closets are amazing. All the softness.
This, because a better mic in a lousy room gets you a much better recording of a bad sound.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So finding, definitely the first thing that I get back to it, a mic, not knowing where they are and constantly changing it. If I'm going to be able to control it, I throw up blankets. I throw up all, I did a voiceover for a pretty big spot that, I just threw up I just found blankets and literally hung them over chairs around me just to make sure that I could knock down that. And because it was last minute, it had to be done. And it came out great. With the music bed and everything else, you couldn't hear any of the reflection. That the room was not a great room.
I've heard recording in your car.
I hear a
lot of glass in the car.
Can work. It can work. It just depends on the car. Next question.
The next question is our own Doug Ferguson. He says, I have a QNAP TS-1635 configured as a RAID 6. I've deleted files, but I can't figure out why it is still showing the wrong capacity. Anyone know how to reclaim this space?
Colin? Then Jason.
QNAP devices have a reclaim mechanism that will not only wipe files marked for deletion, but will also move your files across your disks so that you can physically reclaim space and more effectively swap out a disk if you choose to increase the size of your RAID or in parts. It's in the I can't bring up the menu right now, but it's in the configuration menu.
Jason?
Colin nailed it. The garbage empty feature is actually a hidden folder. When you delete something, it goes into that, and it's a separate function call. So yeah, just find that and you're good.
Yeah, it's called a recycle folder.
Oh.
on the
Recycle folder.
QNAP.
It depending on what OS, yeah, recycle bin, garbage, trash folder. You know, it's the same function as you see on Windows and on a Mac in that regard.
Thanks, guys.
Next question.
Jeff Francis says Black Magic Design HyperDeck Studio Mini has a really loud fan. Any recommendations for quieter alternatives, HDMI or SDI input recorders?
Phil and then Paul.
Yeah, it's got the same sound profile as a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter. And it's not the quietest, but I gotta say, somebody about 2 weeks ago, and I was meaning to thank whoever it was, put the tutorial in about the iFixit had the recommendation for the fan. I swapped it out. Little soldering was needed, but now I stick my ear right next to it, and there is zero sound in that thing, and it's perfect. Absolutely highest recommendation.
And what fan did you put in?
It was the little one that I'll put the link in. It's what's it called? The Noctua HF.
Oh, so Paul, go ahead. Is that
Paul has it right there. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't miss. If you've got a HyperDeck, you must do it.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, so I actually did this in both the switch to it here. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it. Oh well. I have two devices here from Blackmagic, and they were howling at me. And now I've replaced the fans, and it's almost completely silent. It makes a world of difference.
Maybe someone should contact Blackmagic and have them install new fans.
Yeah.
Because
is everybody deaf there?
Just one more thing. I did actually create a video of me doing that, so I will post it.
Please do. Absolutely.
It's worth pointing out here that Noctua has a wide range of fan products. It is their specialty, and they are known worldwide for having the most silent fans. Paul, could you let us know what the model number is for that fan? Because that's a 5-volt fan with a 2-pin 5-volt fan, right? There are.
It's on the link I just put in the chat.
Oh,
okay. The ordering number and everything is right in there.
Excellent. But be careful when ordering these things. Whether you want a 2-pin fan or a 3-pin fan with PWM control. And
it's a 4-pin. 4-pin.
Oh, it's a 4-pin? Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So be aware when ordering these things.
I want to point out that Paul has added a fan bracket to his ATEM Mini stand on my request, so you can put 2 Noctua fans in that and keep it cool. So he's the best.
It's a lifestyle. You go ahead, Jason. Real quick, 15 seconds.
Okay. Somebody in the chat said, "Oh, I had that problem with the TV studio, the 3/4 single rack mount." Guess what? It works there too.
And Jesse, didn't you drill into your? What did you drill into?
Oh my God, yeah. So this is a Blackmagic ATEM 1 ME, and I just cut some giant holes in the top and put the larger fan size. The Noctuas again were excellent. Separate power supply. Yeah, Paul's showing an example there. So I took out the smaller fans and basically put some big beefy, I think 140 millimeter, something like that, fans on the top, and it's dead silent. Works well.
That's great. So these are the aftermarket. This is like aftermarketing your car. We're aftermarketing our Blackmagic stuff. Go ahead, Mickey. 15 seconds.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, companies like Avid have horrible fans in their audio interfaces. So I've done the same thing, Noctua fans in them.
I think there's a whole. I'm starting to think that there's a whole hour that we're going to spend just talking about how we add fans to our equipment. All right.
Hot rod tech.
Yeah, hot rod your Blackmagic hot rod. Anyway, pretty soon we're going to put little fins on the back of them. Anyway, so and some little lights that turn. Anyway, go ahead, Chris. Next question.
Alex, do you know of any other types of vetted apps similar to the ones Yamaha makes for fan engagement, like clapping or responding to action?
Not off the shelf. So we've built ones that do that. You can. The thing to know is if you're for instance, if you're working with some of the things like Facebook will let you see through the API. Facebook will let you see interactions like the little emojis, and you can use those emojis, or you can even search the text if you need to through the graph. And have people respond to things using those. And so you can build those in. And I know that Facebook is kind of doodling about with some graphics and some other studio stuff that they're working on. So they might have more tools like that in the future. But I don't know if we're working on that a lot internally. So being able, audience interaction is, I think, the future, and figuring that out. But I haven't seen a lot of off the shelf stuff that was particularly well thought out. And the big problem is that people building the content are not the people doing the content. And so they come up with, really goofy ideas about how this is going to work and what it's going to work like. And it's just very much of a academic versus production approach to how this works. And so we're hoping to kind of meet in the middle with some of the stuff that we're working on we'll be rolling out. You guys will see a little bit of some of the beginnings of that as early as next week. Next question, Chris.
Roz McNulty says, I have to send 80 videos plus artwork to a company I'm working for. I'm sending it to France. I don't want to upload for the rest of my life. Any recommendations? Should I mail a hard drive?
Yes.
Yes, straight up yes.
Here's the problem: I don't know how much. I don't know how much you have, but I'm assuming that you have a lot, tens or hundreds of gigs of stuff. And what you'll end up with is doing that unless you really have a specialized service for it. You do it all the time, and you have a lot of bandwidth. You're going to constantly end up with failures to upload, and things aren't complete. And there's processes there. There are tools that will let you do it. Services that will let you do it that are much higher grade than Dropbox, but they usually cost a fair bit of money. It'll probably end up costing you less. If you're doing it all the time, then there's services that you can subscribe to that'll make this cheaper or easier. If you are doing it once, I would put it on an SSD and send it. I wouldn't send a spinning drive in the mail anymore, but I would put it on some SSD and off you go. It's not going to be that expensive, and just don't declare a lot when you send to France. That's all I got to say. Jason, then Bill, then Chris, quickly.
The question is, which has more bandwidth, a dump truck going from New York to LA full of hard drives at, 65 miles an hour, or the fastest fiber connection in the world? And the answer is the dump truck.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, it is getting better. Frame.io, which I'm a subscriber to, just launched a new transfer service, which is a really good, it's like a torrent kind of a thing, but official. And I'm seeing much better up and downloads on a fiber line where I have a gigabit Ethernet, and it works pretty darn well. So I can see it coming. It's just still not there yet. It's going to get better.
Yep. I mean, we're definitely getting there. Go ahead, Chris.
Bill answered my question. I yield my time to the gentleman from
ask the next
Nevada.
question.
All right. Boom. John Wigglesworth says, I've been testing VST3 plugins with vMix. Noise reduction, I'm not going to read the model numbers. Noise reduction, multi-band compressor, loudness monitor. All do what they say on the box, but have had problems with memory errors up to full crashes on a previously stable system. Any pointers on making my plugins be more stable?
Leland, say contact the vendor first and see if they have a workaround with your particular machine, because not every machine runs the same on software that's being applied to it. So you should always first talk to the person who developed the software, see if there's an issue with the hardware you're using that they're aware of, and then go from there, and then work your way into it and see if it's just one plugin over another. I would say start with one plugin at a time, try the process you've been using. If it crashes, then one way or another, you're going to identify the plugin. And if it's not that, I would start looking at your memory hardware.
Next question. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris Comfort. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if because most of what was mentioned were Waves plugins. Are they just notoriously heavy when it comes to real time and live use?
Anytime you add a plugin to an audio feed out, you're going to be adding a lot of strain on that system. So it's really a matter how many you want to lay in there. Is there really a requirement that you're using all these plugins for in the first place?
Yep. Yashai?
Sometimes you have to go and change the buffer size or sampling there. That can be that what can choke the CPU. So if you give it a little more time, sometimes it acts a little better. I'm just trying to look for the exact name. Anyway, I forgot. It's a buffer size for the DAW, whatever. So it's basically give it a little more time to catch up, and then you should not have a problem.
Next question.
Greg Yotes says, I'm tired of screwing around with cheap microphone spring booms that don't lock well or move on their own. What is everyone's recommendation for a great or favorite microphone boom?
The one that we've seen the most in higher end studios are the OC White Pro booms, the Ultima. I think they're the Ultima ultra low profile adjustable mic booms. I mean, they are pricey. They're $350, but they're silent and they are underslung, so they're not in the way of cameras. So they look really nice around a table. Those are the ones it's what I've seen almost everybody use. Are those? There's a couple other ones that are pretty slick. Go ahead, Chris.
I will say I've been through 3 booms just during office hours. They're in the closet. And the one I've landed on is called the Blue Compass. And it's pretty quiet when you move it.
Right.
You just heard it.
So right. Yeah. So yeah, those are the couple of ones I said. The ones that I've seen to be the most. There's also I believe the other one that I've seen is the Thron. I think the Thron Max S1 is another one but those OC White, even though it says OC White, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's white. It is just, there's a whole line of stands that they have that mostly what I see when I walk into high-end studios. Go ahead, Roscoe, and then Paul, but real quick, we're going to move on.
For those of us without an Alex budget, $29.95, Amazon Basics or Guitar Center, get the good old basic boom microphone. I'll hold it up here, but I'll try and throw a link in too. I mean, it just works. It's simple and it works.
Right. If you're looking for something that doesn't have a way to move it around, I think is the question there. Yeah, and definitely I have one as well for that. Go ahead, Paul. 15 seconds.
The Yellowtech M exclamation point KA standard mic arm is pretty good, but it's $400. And then an alternative would be the Blue Compass tube style boom broadcast boom arm.
Mickey, 15 seconds.
Yeah, what Paul just mentioned, the Mika, you can order them with built-in tally lights, so you know when the mic is on air.
Yeah, and so those are all. I mean, these are like when you say I'm tired of messing around with cheap ones, we're going to tell you, okay, well, here are the expensive ones. Like here are the ones that are coming that will make it. When you start spending money on these, there is a certain physics limit to what you can do for a small amount of money. I mean, there is, they're going to put better parts in it, and they're going to be quieter, and they're going to run better, and they're going to hold better, they're going to hold more weight. Those are all the things that you pay for. So if you get tired of having it be one way, it's going to cost more to have it be another. So anyway, next question. We're going to move on.
Buy once, cry once. Kevin McCardle says, any recommendations for a small digital mixer, 8 channels or so, with physical faders? I need auxes and USB connectivity for vMix.
And try not to delete them so quickly or move them so quickly.
It moved on its own. I didn't do that.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's
3 down. Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, I see. Because people are voting. People are voting up in the speed round. We're like, what's going on? Anyway, so my recommendation would be for a small one, and we can have other people. I mean, I think the 2 things that I would look at are like the XR18 or the MixPre 10. Well, okay, but you can always attach faders to it. So I would, I would also look at the USB or the MixPre 10 with MIDI faders. Is going to give you all those inputs, give you that connectivity, and then you can hook up almost any little MIDI controller to run those. The Mickey's showing that right now. Paul, go ahead. Quickly.
Yeah, after my experience today with this old Yamaha mixer, I'm thinking of replacing it with the Yamaha MG10 XU 10 input stereo mixer with effects, $209 on Amazon.
All right, and I'm afraid that I can't really deal with analog mixers anymore, so that's my limitation. It just has to be a digital with buses and all the things. I can't think that way anymore. Like real buses, not real buses, digital buses. Next question. We're in a speed round. Go ahead.
Troy Warrior says, how many of us spend the Q&A time madly searching Google trying to learn all of this tech? Thanks for all that. And it's not a question. Well, it's kind of a question.
Okay.
We'll move on.
Yeah, we all
Troy
do that.
Also says, other than Discord, what messaging apps are people running during Zoom?
The only one I'm running is Zoom. Like I can't keep track of them all, but I'm on, talking the most. So I think that I don't really track anything other than that. I don't know what anybody else is using. Go ahead, Phil.
Slack. Got a lot of Slack going on.
Yep.
About this meeting?
Sometimes. A lot of people out there.
Go ahead, Colin. And then Bill, real quick, 15 seconds each.
It's a toolbox. I use whatever messaging app the client wants to use. So I've got clients who prefer to talk on Skype. I have clients who prefer to talk on Hangouts. I have clients who prefer to talk on Facebook Messenger. You use whatever's out there. And I'm logged into all of them at pretty much all times, which arguably does get frustrating, but it also works.
I'm the only guy here gets confused. I get a message. It comes up on my screen on my phone or something. I have no idea which of the 8 messages services that I'm plumbed into is the source of that. Drives me nuts.
I don't know about the source, but I know that when I'm trying to think about who I'm talking to, trying to remember what I talked to them on is the thing that like, where did they tell me that? Like, is it in messages or is it and then the worst part is I have some people that will use different ones for different reasons. So I have one person that will use 3 different messaging apps, whether it's Messenger or Signal or WhatsApp, depending on who we're talking to. And then it's just like this, I don't know where our dinner reservation is usually the thing, So anyway, next question.
TJ Asher says, I keep hearing the phrases above the line and below the line regarding people in production. What does this mean?
Go ahead, Bill. Quickly, 1 minute.
Traditional budgeting. There was executives were above the line and fixed costs. So your music budget or something like that could go above the line. Below the line were variable costs, all the things. If you're adding cameras, the number of cameras get set up for that. So basically, above the line, more executive fixed cost, and below the line were all the variables down to the gaffer's tape.
And in film, above the line usually has points on the film, and below the line does not. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, above the line is going to be tied to the project all the way through. Below the line may be hired for a day or two just to work.
No, absolutely. Felix. Or no, sorry. Next question.
Felix says, any recommendations against SMR? Shingled magnetic recording hard drives for backups. I don't know what that means.
No, Steven says no. Go ahead, Lee. And then Andrew, quickly.
Okay, I'm using a different mic than I was earlier. Hopefully this is loud enough. There is a really good video a guy did on YouTube. I'll see if I can find it, Felix. And it talks about this and versus a CMR drive and the differences. And apparently in a RAID situation, you don't want to use SMR drives. It's a different format in the way they're doing it. It's really, really slow. And the CMR drives are the ones you want to use.
I think that
Andrew,
video was from Serve the Home.
Yeah,
Shingled. Yes, that's exactly who it was.
Okay, yeah, Andrew, and then Mickey, and then Jason.
Yeah, what Shingled it means, the tracks are very close and actually they overlap each other when they're writing the information. So you have, let's say this is the data, the next data is kind of written over partially over the one before it, and so on and so forth. And if you want to change, it's okay for as a backup if you're not going to rewrite to it as an archive. But if you need to erase something, well, when it's erasing this track, it's also erasing part of the one underneath it. So it has to make a copy, erase it, and put it back. So there's a lot of work because the head's going all over the place. So you can't edit with it. It's too slow. But as an archive, it's great because you can get an 8 terabyte drive that'll fit 10 terabytes on it. That's kind of how the big drives get with the same platter sizes, get more data on it.
Got it, Jason.
Andrew's high-level explanation was just fine. I would remind everyone that one copy of anything is a terrible idea.
Nothing exists until it exists in 2 places. All right, next question. Last one.
Alexander Curtis says, has anyone used Sling Studio? Thoughts?
I have tried. I have this is another one of those ones that even the guys at Sling Studio, I mean, they've had me the product managers come up to me and they, okay, I want to show you this. And as soon as I touch it, it comes apart. It just literally every single time it just starts hiccuping and not having, and I think that it's very software driven. It's very, dependent on a lot of variables. And I think that I might use it at home, or I might use it in maybe something that's not mission critical, but I wouldn't put it. I don't think I would put Sling Studio in anything that was being seen by more than a handful of people at a time. I've literally never had an experience when it was stable. I don't know if anybody else has had any of that, but it's an interesting idea, and just haven't seen it actually achieve its potential. Go ahead, Leland. 30 seconds.
I think its big downfall is that it is somewhat Wi-Fi based. It's using a aerial signal rather than a hardline signal. So
yeah, it's just you got a 4K sensor that basically you can reframe and do all kinds of things. It's really cool with an iPad if it worked, and it doesn't. Jeffrey.
Follow the rules just like with video, and that is if you're going to get a bunch of phones for it, get your own phones for it and get the same models of phones. And so you have a commonality. Do that. Don't use other people's devices, period.
Yeah. All right. Now we are shifting gears. We've made it. We actually got to the end. We answered all the questions relatively well. We're very proud of ourselves, but now it's all starting over again. We're going to talk about education. So every Monday, our plan is to just shift the gears. Right at the beginning of this, like many other things started, we'll start bringing people in to talk. But at the beginning, we're just discussing education and media and having a place. Whoops, someone's got an open mic. We just want to answer questions and talk about it and have a space for people that are dealing with education and trying to figure this stuff out. We're in uncharted waters when it comes to figuring a lot of these bits and pieces out. And Leland, you got an open mic, not anymore. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clear the board. I think we have Alex